of where our Public Accounts Committee has been meeting. Some of you who follow me regularly on Facebook, you'll have been seeing more videos from the Public Accounts Committee. This is one of the new assignments that I've been given by new Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, and I've been really excited to dive into the opportunity that comes with Public Accounts Committee. Public Accounts is a critically important committee of Parliament. It's a committee that has responsibility across every policy area of the government, but it doesn't specifically look into policy issues. Instead, it looks at the efficiency and effectiveness of government. It looks at whether government is actually delivering on the priorities that it sets. And you could think of it as the accountability committee. It's responsible for reviewing government action and holding the government accountable for the actions they take. That's the Public Accounts Committee. I'm newly a member of the Public Accounts Committee, and you'll be seeing more and more content if you follow my Facebook page straight out of the Public Accounts Committee as we dig into the different reports from the Auditor General and other sources that help us understand what the government is doing or not doing to deliver on the priorities that it sets. So I'm here just outside the door of our Public Accounts Committee, where we are reviewing new reports from the Auditor General. Today, just this morning, we had new reports released by the Auditor General. And here's typically how the process works. So the Auditor General reviews reports, reviews the action of different government departments to say, are priorities being met? Are objectives being achieved? Is money being spent well? And are the outcomes being measured or not? The Auditor General develops these reports, reports those to Parliament, and then it's up to the Public Accounts Committee to review those reports, call the Auditor General, call government officials, and make further recommendations to help drive forward this process of holding the government accountable for what they're doing. So just today, just this morning, we've had new reports released, and we are hearing from the Auditor General in camera at the moment, so in private, but then we'll be digging into these reports further in public and making more recommendations. So I want to highlight a few of the reports because I think you'll find them very, very interesting. There was a report on our Arctic security, and this is an issue that's been greatly discussed. Canada has vast Arctic territory, and we know there have been various foreign interests that are trying to intervene in our Arctic to monitor what's going on. There's concerns about illegal fishing, various security issues, and whether or not we're preserving and protecting our sovereignty in the Arctic. And the Auditor General found that the government had not acted to address long-standing issues affecting the surveillance of Arctic waters. The Auditor General found that federal organizations who are responsible for safety and security in the region have a completely incomplete picture of what's happening with vessel traffic in the Arctic, especially when it comes to smaller vessels that are coming into the Arctic, have no obligation to report. They're not being tracked, and there's limited sharing of information between government departments. So essentially, when it comes to the safety, security, the surveillance of our Arctic waters, Liberal government has no idea what's going on. Now, this is an issue that I've worked on previously in a different role on the Foreign Affairs Committee. We did a report on Arctic sovereignty. Specifically, we recommended that there needed to be better monitoring and awareness around small vessels. And what we see with this Arctic waters surveillance report, as we've seen with other reports, is that the government often fails repeatedly to address issues. The Auditor General raises something, the government doesn't respond, and then the issues are raised subsequently in other reports, further underlining that they haven't taken action. So other reports. Emergency management in First Nations communities. The Auditor General assessed how the government was doing in terms of through Indigenous services, helping Indigenous communities prepare for emergencies. The result, the Liberals are doing a terrible job. The Auditor General found that the government has been slow to effectively use the means at their disposal to provide the best outcomes for all people. They found that most of the dollars for emergency management is spent in a reactive way, that is responding to emergencies rather than helping communities put in place basic infrastructure that will prevent emergencies and save money. So a failing grade on that one. Other reports are on cybersecurity of personal information on the cloud. The government is supposed to be protecting your personal information. The Auditor General identified that security controls were applied and monitored inconsistently across departments. And then finally, on chronic homelessness, the government has talked a lot about their alleged great strategy when it comes to fighting homelessness. The auditor found that although 5 years have gone by since the federal government's national housing strategy was launched, there is still no organization in the federal government taking the lead on Canada's target to prevent and reduce chronic homelessness. So these are a number of things the Auditor General has been looking at. The government's response to security in our Arctic waters, Indigenous services, cybersecurity, and chronic homelessness, and in all of those cases, identifying that systems aren't working properly, that monitoring isn't being done effectively, and that our security and privacy, as well as the effectiveness of service delivery, is at risk. So this is some of the important work that the Public Accounts Committee is doing. We received these reports from the Auditor General. We're going to review them, and we're going to report back subsequently. We're going to report back to the House with further recommendations. We're going to bring in officials from these departments to say, in some cases, these are issues that have been raised before. The government hasn't responded or corrected course. I think what people are seeing in general, whether it's the Arrive scam app, whether it's access to children's Tylenol, this Liberal government has not been actually effective at delivering results. They can't run anything. They can't run a passport office. They can't secure timely access to medicine. Our healthcare system faces major challenges in this country. In area after area after area, the government has been sadly ineffective at doing its job. And one of the things Canadians will judge their government on is yes, on its values, its intentions, but also more importantly, I would say, on its ability to achieve results. And what we're finding here at the Public Accounts Committee is a repeated failure by the government to deliver results. So we're going to continue to do this important work, and I'll be bringing you more regular updates from the Public Accounts Committee about what we're looking at, how we're measuring and holding the government to account for their failures to deliver in the areas they're supposed to be working on.